Welcome. I'm Chip Barkell. I'm a realtor in Toronto, Canada with eXp Realty, and I'm here today with Donna O'Sullivan from the Philadelphia area. I know Donna through Send Out Cards, and we got talking. I found out she was an insurance specialist with Allstate. Let her expand on that in a minute. We had started talking about the exposure, the risks that a lot of agents take in running a home-based business. And she mentioned that there were products that she sells that can save people. And I've had a few claim experiences myself, whether myself or friends, and we can talk about that later. But I invited Donna on to talk about some of the products that she recommends for agents in her area. So welcome, Donna.
Thank you so much, Chip. I appreciate being here. So I appreciate, ladies, that you took the time to join us. If you have any questions throughout this, feel free to put it down in the question and answers, and we'll be happy to address those as we go. The reason why Chip invited me here is there tends to be a lot of some confusion as far as what is and isn't covered under an error and omission policy, and a lot of the exposures that realtors are finding now that they're coming across and realize they don't have any type of protection until it's too late. And there's nothing worse than insurance and needing it and you don't have it. It's sort of like jumping out of an airplane without a parachute. You're in trouble.
Donna, I'd like to add to that. It's not agent related, but it is real estate. I had a bit of a flood a couple of years ago in my basement. And the first thing we thought was, we have a platinum insurance policy. This will be covered, not to worry, and called the agency, the broker. And I tend to rely on my broker's recommendations, people like you, to say, you know what, this is what you need, and this is the basic. And if you really want the bells and whistles, you need this too. And so we had thought we had done that, and got a call back saying, well, I have good news and bad news. The good news is that the base coverage, the maximum coverage should have been $15,000, but you're covered for $25,000. Well, our loss was $50,000 or $60,000. So that's not what we wanted to hear, So that was an expensive mistake, relying on that particular broker's, recommendation, but it didn't go far enough for the size and quality of home that we have. So go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I just thought.
No, I'm glad you bring that up. A lot of people, myself included, I have, a few locations, but I work from home primarily myself. So I have an office set up. I have, dual monitors, computers, scanners, printers, voice over IP phones, stuff like that. So it gets quite expensive. If I have a fire in my home, this stuff is business related. It is not covered under my homeowner policy. I have to have my separate general liability policy that's going to have business content protection on that, the BPP, business personal property. That's what's going to pay for my stuff. So it's really important for people to understand we are self-employed. A realtor is more self-employed than anyone I hire, even if they're just sales alone. You only get paid by commission. That makes you 100% self-employed. That's why the broker usually requires you to pay into the errors and omissions, the E&O. People don't want to pay into it. They don't understand a lot of times what that is. Basically, what you're doing is you're paying into a malpractice policy. They'll call it professional liability, errors and omissions, malpractice. It sort of depends on your profession as to what terminology they use, but it's all the same. If you make an error in the course of your job, meaning for errors and omissions, which is what I carry also, that means that it's going to protect you for misrepresentation, basically. If you list a house, say it's 200,000, you accidentally list it for 400 and no one shows up, you could be sued for that. If you misrepresent some of the wording in the contract, or someone comes back and sues you and says, well, you didn't explain to me this, that, and the other in this contract, and I wasn't aware of this, and now I want out of it, and they're going to sue you. That's what where the errors and omissions is going to pick up, and they're legally going to represent you.
Actually, I know of a situation like that here in Toronto. I think the listing was, I can't remember the exact numbers, one, maybe 1,350, but the offer went in from the buyer at 1,437. Well, the offer should have been 1,347. You know, they had transposed the numbers, so it was about $90,000. So that's a good example of that errors and omissions.
Yeah,
Should have been
and they
caught,
would,
a little caught.
and they will pick up, and that's when they will defend you for that.
Mhm.
Now, when it comes to general liability, which is sort of the same concept but covers totally different variety of stuff. So your general liability kicks in to protect your assets. CYA, cover your assets, I always say. That's what comes in if someone sues you for something else. So when you're at that house, you're doing a showing where, whether it's an open house or you're just meeting a buyer and taking a buyer in, that homeowner is not there. That home now is in your care, custody, and control. Anything that happens in that home is the agent's responsibility. So if they come back and say, I had a Rolex watch, I had diamond earrings, this is missing. I've had situations where people had unlocked windows and broke in, went back, squatted. They knew the house, people weren't living in the house, destroyed the homes. I could tell you stories that would make you cry. That, and a lot of times you don't hear of these things. Remember, Chip, back in the old days where the agents, I'm testing you, I'm testing your age here. Remember when the agents would go in and they would bake cookies to make it smell
Oh yeah,
nice?
some agents still do that.
Yeah, yeah. And then we've had a situation. There was one where someone sprayed like Febreze and stuff, and you had someone in the household that was severely allergic. And I remember that because I'm allergic to fragrance.
Mhm.
And that was a huge deal. That was, and the agent's general liability policy will not extend to an agent. It can't. The broker's policy can't extend because you are self-employed.
That's
It
right.
will only extend to the W-2 employees. So there are administrative people working the desk and stuff. That's the
You,
only people.
we are independent contractors, and that emphasis on the independent, I think, is important.
Yes. And realistically, an average agent's income is probably 40, 50,000 a year.
I think you're right. The statistics from NAR are about 40, 45,000.
This year, slightly lower. COVID was a challenge
Mhm.
in the world, but they're still averaging 30, 35 for an average. You've got your all stars and you've got people who'll sell one or two houses a year, but the average is about 40, 50,000. And the bottom line is we can't afford not to protect our assets. Our business is our income, which pays for our home, which pays for our other assets that are important to us. Insurance is the one thing you pay for, you hope you don't have to use. So people don't want to think about paying for it. But the bottom line is if someone sues you, and there's nothing that says anyone can sue you for anything whatsoever, and you still have to defend yourself. Even if there's no merit to it, they still have the right to defend, to sue you. You have to defend yourself. An attorney could cost you tens of thousands of dollars, and then if they're found probable cause and they award the other person because you're not, defending yourself properly, then they could come up with an outrageous award. Well, that those earrings were $40,000. You owe them $40,000, or the damage to this house was, $200,000. And it's your responsibility because it's your care, custody, and control. So what I did was I'm a top commercial producer in the country. I've been with the company for 36 years. I started when I was 5. I,
You're with
um,
Allstate, correct?
I am with Allstate. I went to the national sales team and worked with them. I have several friends that are agents, and we did a lot of talking and stuff. And I've explained over the years the issues that could happen, and I've heard and seen and witnessed a lot of horror stories. So I went to the national sales team and said, "This is a real issue. We need to design something to help realtors." And So what we did was we put together a program, a home-based business program that covers small independent contractors that work from home. So, you also have people who make jewelry or candles, or, you have people who sell Pampered Chef, and so they're all home-based businesses. But we needed something designed that's going to meet the needs of agents. So we put together this program. We tweaked it to be able to, first off, make it affordable. So the prices start at 225 a year. People say, well, if you can afford a pizza once in a month, you can afford, to protect your income. And then we started adding things that could go on to this policy that were really important. So we have a nice spread that you can add on. It's 95 a year. So put your policy about 320 a year if you want this additional coverage. But the main thing is to understand things can happen. Now, you've told a couple incidents where a couple of your friends just had some scenarios with their laptops.
Yeah, my brokerage, we are, I can't remember how many were actually in our office, a few hundred, but we're sequestered from the public. And so often we'd leave our laptop on the desk and go to lunch and come back, or go and do a quick showing. And, the laptop would sit on the desk, never thought anything of it. Well, one day, one of my colleagues who just sat one or two desks over, she came back from lunch, her laptop was gone. And so, we thought, okay, well, were there any clients in the back? And nobody knew anything about it. Nobody had seen anything. Turns out, a few months later, one of the staff people, salaried people within the office, was stealing credit cards, wallets, things, so it was an inside job, basically. But the brokerage, because there was no proof of who took the laptop, it was up to the agent. And it was, it was an Apple laptop worth a couple $1,000s. She was quite upset. So that's one loss. And then just the other day in social media, somebody was saying that they had gone to a showing or something, left their laptop in the car got broken.
Taking a child into daycare.
It was a daycare? Okay.
Yeah, daycare. Left her purse and her laptop out there.
Yeah, purse and laptop disappeared. And so, those are losses that I think we can all relate to. It's never happened to me, but I've gone to Starbucks and with my laptop and just thought, okay, I'm going to quickly run to the washroom and had too much coffee, come back. And I've thought about it. I thought, I really shouldn't do that. But, you could turn your back for a minute to throw something away, and something, it could disappear. So these are real risks that we take. And unfortunately, until we have a loss, many of us don't really think about it.
There's some other coverages that are important that people don't think about. First off, some brokerages, and I believe Compass is one of them, they require the agents to do the money wire transfers for the for the closings and stuff. So you can have coverage that's going to protect you up to $100,000. Well, you can go up to $1 million, but I think the average for an agent would be 100,000. And that's going to protect you in case, it goes to the wrong place or you've been hacked or anything like that. You have data compromise. If someone breaks into your laptop, and believe it or not, probably 80% of the identity theft comes from small business owners, because large corporations like Allstate itself, they've got people trying to hack in all the time. You hear of, like TJ Maxx and Equifax and all these large Marriotts and stuff, all the identity being hacked. You don't hear about the millions of small businesses that they can get in like that. They can just get into your computer because you might have a little bit of antivirus or something, but it's so easy. If they can get into the government, they can get into our laptops.
That's right.
Every piece of information, every person that you've had contact with now has to be notified. You have fees, penalties, you have to have legal protection, and you have to offer and pay for identity theft for every person affected for a year. Lots of money, lots of money. And again, if you're showing something and someone breaks something at a showing, you're responsible for that. That home's in your care, custody, and control. And I can tell you a couple bigger stories that are they're not as common, but they happen. There was an incident where an agent was showing a home, and it was a husband, a wife, and a child, a young boy. And they went into the home, and they were told, they were directed before, no one goes in the back bedroom. The back bedroom is closed. The little boy wandered off because people tend to go in different directions and you sort of let them look around. But the boy went into the back and there was a dog in there. So the dog went under the bed and the boy went under the bed after to play with the dog, and the dog ate the boy, basically. I mean, it was pretty bad. And then you have the situation where, the husband, wife, and 3 children, a family of 5, they bought their new home, and the first night in the home, they all died of carbon monoxide poisoning, and the agent had to defend themselves.
Wow, really? Now, what
Well,
kind of
because
charges would the agent have been up for that?
well, they brought, anytime someone sues, they bring in every Jane Doe, Tom, Dick, and Harry they can find. So the agents brought in, the brokers brought in, the managers brought in, the home inspectors brought in. All these people are being sued. And if the broker, say, some of the really large firms have in-house lawyers, but if they take on and defend you, they then have to take the liability exposure also. You can't have it one way or the other. So if it's something small, it might cost them, a couple $100. They might have someone do something for you. But if you get into something that's serious, they're not going to touch it. Even the in-house lawyers, that team's there to, cover the butt and the assets of the broker itself.
Donna, there's a comment came from one of the chat people, one of the attendees. They said they have an umbrella policy will meet the kinds of needs that we have as an independent contractor. How do you know? Does it have to be a business personal property policy? Like,
you broke up on me there. I'm sorry.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, you're just going in and out.
Okay. The comment was that this person has an umbrella policy. So how do you know? Do you have to make sure that it's a business personal property policy? How would you know that, that's, going to cover you off? What questions should I be asking?
If it's an umbrella policy for their homeowners, is that what it is?
I don't know. That's what I'm asking. So people might think they're covered with an umbrella policy, but how do they know they're really covered?
So what an umbrella policy is an extension of liability. So a personal umbrella policy is going to extend it. It's a separate policy that covers your existing policies. So a personal one is going to extend to your home and your auto. So if you get in a car accident and you kill a family of 5 and they're suing you for millions of dollars, once you exceed, say, that $250,000 you're carrying on your bodily injury per person, or your max amount per occurrence on your auto, then if you have like $1 million umbrella, it kicks in as extended coverage.
Okay.
It works the same way for your homeowner. So if someone drowns in your pool, they fall off the balcony, they trip on your sidewalk that's cracked. I had an employee, my daughter-in-law's friend worked for me, and she's a jogger. She's an avid jogger, and the leaves were falling, and there was uneven pavement out there, and she tripped and fell, and she broke her leg right before she went to Mexico. And she sued the homeowner. So that just picks up, like if you have 300,000 on your homeowner liability, then that $1 million would kick in. There is no coverage on a personal policy for your assets, for business assets.
I think I come from an insurance background myself. I used to do computer programming and teach computer programmers. So most people don't realize that there's a real division between personal insurance products and commercial insurance products. And I think what we're talking about, you want to make sure you're covered for your business. And, the point that you brought out, if you have a fire in your house, they're not going to cover your business assets. That was something I never really thought about, my computer, my printer,
there's no insurable interest.
Right.
Chip, you have, in the insurance world, you have to have an insurable interest. So therefore, I can't insure my children's car on my policy if they own it, because there's no insurable interest. Insurable interest, namely, is named, insured, and spouse.
Right.
And so you have to be, sorry about that. I thought I turned that down. You have to have an insurable interest. Well, how can a personal entity have an interest in a business because one's personal and one's business. Even if you're an
Mhm.
individual and you're self-employed, you're an individual, you didn't file an LLC or a corporation or an S corp or any of that, it's still a business. Business and personal will never meet together.
Yeah, that's an
There's no
important thing, and
insurable interest.
a lot of people don't realize that.
They
Thank you.
don't. And even the cost, even if you said, okay, so I know I need this policy, I want this policy because I want to know that if someone ever sues me, I have all the legal protection I need with another $1 million they'll pay out to protect me.
Mm.
So someone goes back in, they destroy a home, they take it over, they squat, they kick holes in every wall and door that's in there, which has happened. A bunch of kids go in, they party and stuff. I've seen that happen umpteen times in my years. You, when they sue you, and they will, not only are they going to pay for the damages, they're going to legally defend you for
Mhm.
about the cost of a pizza. But another thing is your house catches fire or someone comes in and robs you, and you have a printer, you've got a work computer, you've got a scanner, you've got a cell phone, and all your other stuff. So say you lose about $5,000 or $6,000 minus whatever deductible you choose, 100, 250, 500, whatever. We're going to pay the rest of that. Who's going to replace a $2,000 or $4,000 laptop,
Mhm.
for $225 a year? It's sort of a no-brainer, but there's so many other coverages that come along with this. And this isn't about a sell today. This is about an education. People need to understand this is your livelihood. This is your assets. One lawsuit could put you out of business. You could lose your home because they can come after your personal assets unless you're tightly bound with a corporation, which most agents aren't because they're small independent contractors.
Mhm.
So they're not going to put the money out to incorporate.
Right.
So therefore, they can attach your personal assets, but your personal assets, insurance isn't going to protect,
No.
your business. So there's an exposure there. It's no different than insuring your home and insuring your car. You insure yourself for life insurance to protect your family. Your income's one of your largest assets because without your income, you have none. Two things a realtor should have. A realtor should have disability insurance, because if you get hurt on or off the job, who's going to pay your income?
Mhm.
You should have some type of a plan that you're investing in to put money away for your retirement, even if it's just a small amount. And they need to protect their assets. They need to insure their business the same as they do their car and the same as they do their home. It's essential. I have a website, realtorscoverage.com. I have a lot of, information out there. Anyone who wants to reach out to me, I'm willing to give them information. I can talk to them. I have a toll-free number, 866-367-4671. But it's imperative that, ask questions, get
Mhm.
involved, know how to protect your business. I would hope everyone does an overview with, their agents as far as home and auto and, the other stuff. But you need someone who understands business insurance. Obviously, your agent doesn't, because I'm sure he knows, your insurance agent knows you're self-employed and he didn't discuss with you on the most insurance companies don't want small policies like this, because
No.
think about it. If you have a loss, they're going to lose $1 million and they're collecting a couple $100 from you. So you think that's insane. It's sort of the law of numbers, because a lot of times your loss, you'll have that one, two, three big ones where the kid gets bit, someone breaks into the house. But all the small claims, they add up too. Laptops all the time, laptops, phone systems, cell phones, expensive, you'd be surprised how many people are walking around with their laptop in a Louis Vuitton.
Yes, yes,
Okay.
absolutely, absolutely.
So, it gets
Well, this would not have been covered by your plan, but last year my leather case to my laptop broke, and so I took the phone out It was unprotected. And I thought, oh, I'll have to get another case. And I had a habit of putting my phone in my shirt pocket. Well, now it's kind of slippery, and I have a boat, and it was kind of rough that day, and we were coming into dock. Well, the boat went up and down, and the phone just jumped out of my pocket and into the lake. So now the phone is at 35 feet down, totally inaccessible. And I thought to myself, well, I think I'm covered from Apple, but no, Apple's coverage, you have to bring the damaged phone in. So if I could have swam to the bottom of the lake 35 feet down and gotten it, but then I found out, oh, it was only good for 2 years, or maybe it was a year. I was over the boundary, the deadline, so would not have been covered anyway. So we can't do our business without a phone. So I had to, immediately go to Apple and say, okay, well, now I'm upgrading my phone, and $1,500 later, I walk out of Apple. So
Yeah.
these things do happen.
Well, with Apple, you can do the care plan also. If you pay month to month, it's ongoing. It's like buying a phone 10 times over. But if not, it ends after a year with the Apple Care program. Allstate did just design a program where we're going to start insuring phones also. I don't know much about it,
Okay.
but it is new coming out.
What kind of coverages do you recommend for agents who have home-based?
Well, I'm going to share my screen real quick and show something.
Okay. I'd also be curious about limits of what kind of limits should we be looking at? Like, how much coverage should I be considering?
Well, that's something else I could show you. So this is what we add on. I'm not supposed to be showing this, but I am. So for comparison, this is your homeowner policy here. And
Okay.
this is the type of coverage. This is if you just have the base business, HBB means home-based business owner policy. And that's that $95 shield for your home-based business.
Like an extra rider.
Correct. So this is the rider over here in green. This is the normal policy in blue, and this is your homeowner policy in orange.
Mm-hmm.
So accounts receivable, when you take money in, your homeowner's zero. This is for your business, mind you, 10,000 on the regular and 50,000 on the shield. Income from dependent properties, you get 5,000. That's going to extend. So say for an example where it says expanded to include the broker's office. So on this policy, if you're working from home, you automatically have a loss of income. This is going to expand 5,000 if something happens at the broker's office and you can't work.
Can you give me
there.
an example of what you're talking about with the business income from dependent property? I don't understand what we're talking about.
Yeah. So what that means is you have an automatic 12-month loss of income due to a covered loss.
Okay.
So say there's a fire at your home and you can't work for the next 2 months while you're trying to get your equipment, you're trying to get your space back up. Your average income is going to be paid back to you.
Okay.
Dependent properties is something that additional property that you own, you lease, or a workspace. Okay. So the broker's office is considered the workspace. They have places you can rent to go and work at, building offices like and stuff, shared spaces. Mm-hmm. Or you might have a shore home that you go to work at. That's what that is. They'll still cover that income. So if there's a fire at the broker's office and you can't go in and work there and it's preventing you from being able to do closings or something, you do qualify for a loss of income there. But these policies are great. I mean, you've got income coverage, your actual loss sustained for 12 months based on certain types of losses. This is your computer fraud and fund transfer. They'll automatically add 5,000 in on the shield. You can buy this. A lot of agents don't do the wire transfers themselves anymore.
No, we don't do those here either.
So but if you do, we can actually endorse that just on the base for about $25 a year for 100,000 in coverage. Covered property, premises extensions. It's just going to cover you at other places. Mm-hmm. Your electronic data, that's really important because when you build your database, say for an example, your send out card program, you're building a database in your computer and something happens and you lose that database, this is the money that you might have to pay someone to help you build that database back up again. This is the money they pay and it's extended to for that. They'll also offer fire theft reward. So they're going to offer a reward for the conviction of, who did that, forgery and alteration. Medical expenses is $5,000. Say someone happens to stop by your house to drop off a contract or something, and they get hurt. And if someone comes to your home, and this is another good point, if you ever have someone like during COVID, I refinanced my mortgage. So the lender came to my home and we met in my backyard. I had the pool open. We sat out there and talked a while and stuff. If he would have gotten hurt on my property, my homeowner would not have covered that because he was there for business purposes. But under your general liability, that $1 million policy will cover you for that.
Interesting.
It will also, yeah, and it will also cover you if you're at the broker's office working and they try to bring you in. We're going to defend you for that. And if we find you partly liable, they're going to pay for that.
Right.
Money orders, counterfeit money, securities, personal property off premises. Like I said, they will cover your personal property up for what your business exposure is, as long as it's not in a secondary location that you own, lease, or at the brokers without this. But it will cover your personal property up to $10,000. So if you have $5,000 and your stuff is stolen from the Starbucks or out of your car, the max they'll pay is $10,000, but they'll only pay up to what your business personal property limit is. And they do increase that up to $15,000, and they include the broker's office if you have the supplemental. And the showing open house endorsement normally costs $25 a year. It's automatically included in here. That's the one that covers any damages. Someone breaks something like an incidental at the showing, and then your valuable papers and records. And then we just have explanations. And I have a Facebook page, protection. I think it's Realtors Protection. And let me just make sure I have that totally accurate. Realtors Insurance Protection. And I will have all this on my Facebook page. If you look for Realtors Insurance Protection, you will find that. I will have those posted at the end of the day on my Facebook page.
I will also make sure that I add your contact information to when I post the recording.
And then you'll just have like little explanations afterwards. In a policy, it's really important to know the main things that you need on that policy. The most important things is that protection in case you're sued, and then that $1 million payout, up to $1 million each claim, but no more than 2 million in a 1-year policy period. So you might get sued 5 or 6 times, but they're not all going to add up, to over $1 million each time or to 2 million total.
I think that's really important to keep in mind. You mentioned this, but I think it's worthwhile going over it again. Just because they don't have merit doesn't mean they can't sue you.
Correct.
I had a situation with a client. I was the listing agent and the buyer was going with the inspector to do an inspection on the home. Well, normally whoever's paying for the inspection, they're an agent, they're bonded, they have access to the lockbox, they go with their inspector. I'm not there. Well, they moved some furniture, a piece of furniture, I think it was a tabletop, dining room tabletop, stuck behind the furnace. They moved it, they claimed it was scratched and damaged. And, I said, well, you're gonna have to talk to the inspector because he's probably covered for insurance for that. And she wanted to bring me into it. And I kept saying, well, no, I wasn't there. I didn't hire the inspector. I have no insurable interest in that transaction. I was, not even in the location. So it got quite ugly. And, as it turned out, it didn't go anywhere. But, she could have tried coming after me personally in my business. Whether she's right or not, that's irrelevant. So I think that's important to keep in mind.
And your business policy, their legal team would have stood up and defended you, and it
Right.
wouldn't have cost you anything out of your pocket.
Yeah.
And if they paid out for
Mm.
damages, say they paid out $5,000 to fix that, you have no deductible on that type of a claim.
Oh, okay.
You
Yeah.
only have a deductible on your business property.
I think it's also peace of mind, and like with any insurance, you hope you don't need to use it. That's but if you do need it, it's there.
The thing I find about insurance, and I've spoken to a lot of agents over the years, and a lot of people find the value in protecting their assets. And the ones that don't, well, I can't afford it. Well, my first comment is if you can't afford it, you need it more than anybody,
Hmm.
because you're not going to be able to afford a lawsuit. You're not going to be able to afford to hire and retain. You couldn't even retain a lawyer probably for 2,500, let alone 225.
That's right. That's right.
And
One question that's come up saying, let's say you have a claim, does that mean your rates are automatically going up? You've mentioned 250 and 95 or 320 total. Let's hope you don't, but let's say your laptop gets stolen and you have to put a claim in for a new laptop.
I have a business policy that just renewed and had a sizable claim in 2018. The rate still hasn't went up.
Okay, well, that's good to know. Yeah.
So, it's more based on rate increases, and they do have rate increases. All companies do, to be able to keep up with the cost of inflation and
Yeah.
claims countrywide. But I haven't seen these little small home-based businesses, to be honest with you. I've been doing the realtor program for, I guess we've been out 2.5 years now. We've been doing this, and I've not seen an increase yet.
Okay, well, that's good to know.
Now, if you're someone and you're putting 5 claims in a year, I'd be more worried that they're going to non-renew you.
That's right. That's right.
Insurance, people have to understand, and it's not so much with business insurance as it is personal insurance, usually homeowners, customers. And I ask my clients, we're very hands-on. And I have a whole team that works countrywide just for the real estate program.
Wow, that's great.
And what we find is with a homeowner, people think it's a maintenance plan. It's not a maintenance plan. Okay, you have a certain responsibility to maintain your property, and people are like, well, my building's cracking up the side, and she'll call me 3 years later, my building's still cracking up the side because you're not repairing your home.
Yeah.
But the main thing is that every contract has rules, every policy has things. You need a company you can call, an agency that's going to say, this is covered, this isn't covered, let me help you, this is how. Because usually, like with a homeowner policy, you're going to save it for the big stuff,
Right.
because your rates are going to change, you're going to lose your claim-free discounts, that type of stuff.
That's right. And these things come up. I mean, I had a home that was it was for lease, but it was like, I think, $18,000 a month lease. If it had sold, it probably would have sold for about $8 million. It was an old 1880s mansion, really. And I got a call one Sunday night. It was kind of rainy and windy. And somebody said, I was walking my dog and I went by your property. There's my name, my phone number was on the sign. And there were French doors in the living room, and the French door had blown open. Well, of course, I went down there and made sure I closed it. But they had weird locks where it was kind of hard to understand how they worked. You had to lift up with the lever, and it was kind of like a secret way of. And obviously, somebody had shown the house and had opened it and not closed it properly, so that it was locked. Nothing happened. It could have been damaged. I mean, beautiful hardwood floors, and there could have been damage. I guess I could have been liable. I have a risk there, but fortunately.
So say the door flung open, an animal, a squirrel, not a squirrel. Well, a squirrel would have been bad enough, but a skunk or something. the French doors broke, water, we had a storm and all the water, got in.
Yeah.
Water, outdoor water coming in is flood. But
Right.
if it's due to a covered loss, like a broken door or a broken window, then they'll cover the water damage
Right.
coming in. Yeah, they could have came after you for a whole lot of stuff. Someone could have went in and robbed them blind,
Mhm.
and
Well,
yeah, you're
fortunately,
responsible
yeah,
for that
fortunately it was vacant,
because
but the original 1880s hardwood floors, and then underneath that was a movie projector room. I mean, I realize now, looking back on it, that I was kind of lucky. Nothing
Mhm.
happened. I went and closed it and thanked the man profusely.
And
Um,
it wasn't an intentional act.
no, no,
Intentional acts are never covered under insurance,
no,
but things happen.
that's right.
And
I think
that's
that,
why, like I said, you've got to protect yourself as a business owner. A business owner needs to protect their assets. There
absolutely.
are so many different things that could happen, but you've brought up some great examples. It's not just about replacing your computer or someone accusing you or having the legal protection. But like you said with the door, there's so many different types of things that can happen.
Mhm.
Those people who are still, baking cookies could. Oh, the candles. I mean,
Light
agents
a
go out all
candle.
the time and you smell smells and you light these fragrant candles and try to overdo pet smells and stuff. What if one knocks over and causes
Yeah,
a fire?
that's right. That's right.
You're liable.
Yeah. And
So it's all about CYA, cover your assets,
absolutely.
protection.
Well, we're going to wrap up in a few minutes, but hopefully, can you repeat your phone number? I'll add it to the post.
Yes.
If anyone wants to contact you,
My toll-free number is 866-367-4671.
4671. Okay, I will
Text
post that.
Tell them that you're calling for my realtor program. They will
Okay,
hunt me down. You will get past my gatekeepers, I promise.
good, good. Well, that's
Uh,
great. Is there anything else in closing that you might want to share with people that are watching?
well, the most important thing is that when it comes to insurance, you have to trust the people you work with and make sure that they're doing it not for them but for you. On
Mhm.
a policy for 225, $300 a year, I don't make money off that. My whole point of this process is I want to get into the agents. I want to get into the team leaders. I want them to know. Brokers don't even know this coverage exists
Mhm.
because most companies don't provide it. They don't want the liability exposure for not making any money off of it.
Well, I think a lot of brokers say you're independent contractors. It's kind of your deal to deal with. So why would they take on a headache when they really have no, to use your lingo, insurable interest, right? So they have
Correct.
nothing to lose. They're covered. I'm sure they have lots of insurance because
They,
for
they
the
do.
purpose. Yeah.
The main thing is being a business owner, you got to be your own personal advocate.
Right.
And to do that, you need to understand all aspects. You cannot, you know, you're still going to be sued, you're still going to have to protect yourself. But it's one thing if you don't understand that this coverage exists, but when you know it, it's all part of the package of being a business owner. A little bit of money could save you tens, hundreds of thousands of dollars later.
Well, I
So
think your analogy of, it's equivalent to a one pizza a month, and I think that really brings it home and puts it in context.
yeah, so the next time, you don't feel like going out to eat or skip a couple of them lattes, that's going to say, oh, I'm going to give in for, my month's coverage.
Yeah.
But
Probably one latte a week would do it. That's great.
probably two lattes a month would probably do it.
There
So
you go. There you go.
you
Well,
could still squeeze a couple in there.
that's right. Thank you very much for sharing this information, and I'll make sure that I post your contact information for people that are watching. And it's
Yeah, go
really,
to my website, realtorscoverage.com, and or call me, look me up, find me on Facebook. I'll post this stuff on Facebook so you can see it. And I hope to be able to help everybody.
that's great. This is valuable information for us to use. But thank you very much, Donna. I appreciate your coming on today.
Thank you. I enjoyed it. Take care.
You too.